How do you feel about working overtime?
My focus is not on the time I spend at work, but the results I'm expected to produce. I'm extremely result-oriented. I'm willing to invest whatever time it takes to produce the results. When I'm given a task to complete, I do so as soon as possible, even if that requires overtime. If there is something I could finish today, I'd rather finish it today than put it off until tomorrow.
When I'm given responsibility, I take it seriously. I make sure what needs to get done gets done. Whether I'm compensated for overtime or not, I get personal satisfaction from getting it done. I'm prepared to work whatever time it takes to get the job done. Would you be able to work overtime if required? How many hours are you prepared to work? What hours can you work?
Are you willing to travel?
The opportunity to travel is one of the key reasons I chose this career track, with its international scope. I love seeing new places and experiencing new cultures, and I love the idea of the challenges presented by doing business in an unfamiliar environment. I think on my feet very well, and I don't need a lot of structure or supervision. Also, I know a key part of your company's growth strategy is Vietnam, and you'll notice from my resume that I'm fluent in Vietnamese. So not only am I willing to travel, but I look forward to it and would consider it a significant factor in my overall development.
How do you feel about travel? Can you travel?
Would you be willing to relocate?
Certainly. When I relocated in the past, new worlds of opportunity opened for me. I find a relocation a chance to learn and grow both professionally and personally. My family is also very supportive of my career.
Yes, I would. As a child, I moved numerous times because of my family situation. I moved 5 times before age 6. I went to 3 elementary schools and 3 junior high schools. As a child, I didn't like to move so much, but looking back now, I think it was great training for me, learning how to adapt to a new environment and taking the initiative in making new friends. Another benefit was I ended up having friends in many different places. I stayed in touch with my old friends for a long time. I'm used to moving, and I'm very adaptable to a new environment.
I would consider the relocation if that would provide an opportunity for advancement or making a greater contribution. Does the job require relocation? How soon might that be? Where are the possible relocation areas? Will you relocate in the future? Are you prepared to relocate? How do you feel about the possibility of relocation? Do you have a location preference?
In what kind of work environment are you most comfortable?
I function best in a positive but competitive environment. I come from a sports background, so I perform well when the adrenaline is pumping, but I've also found that in most cases, encouragement and positive thinking lead to optimal performance. So I want to feel like the starter's gun just went off when I begin my workday, that I'm off and running, but I also want upbeat people beside me and all around me if possible. That would be ideal.
Describe what you feel to be an ideal working environment.
How do you cope with workplace tension?
I believe my professionalism was universally respected by my former bosses and coworkers, and I think I was well liked by the vast majority of people I came in regular contact with. I gained promotions quite quickly after arriving at my former employer, and of course there is always some jealousy, even resentment from people who have perhaps been there longer and feel a certain sense of entitlement. But I strive to understand that and demonstrate by my work ethic and commitment to excellence that I was objectively a solid choice and that reasonable people could say I was a great choice. In almost all cases, I was able to establish cordial relations with those I was promoted over. I think that is the strongest evidence of my interpersonal skills.
Do you handle conflict well? How do you resolve conflict on a project team?
Do you speak up if your point of view differs from that of your superiors?
I'm not a yes person, and I don't refrain from expressing my opinions, but I'm careful about how to express them. I do not argue with anyone, whether it's my superior or coworker. Miscommunication is a common problem, so I want to make sure I understand their view correctly and how they came to form that view. And if I still believe my opinion can make a contribution, I present it as a suggestion, not as a disagreement or criticism.
If opinions are sought in a meeting, I will give mine, but I never criticize my superior or coworkers in an open forum. If there was something I felt strongly about, I would make an appointment with my superior to sit down and discuss it one-on-one. Would you clearly voice your opinion if you disagreed with the views of your boss or superior? How would you deal with, say, a supervisor who was unfair and difficult to work under?
Do you feel the only way to get a job done right is to do it yourself?
I used to have trouble delegating responsibilities, but as my responsibilities increased, it just became impossible for me to do everything by myself. That's when I learned to delegate. By delegating certain tasks to my staff members, I can concentrate on the tasks that require my immediate attention. When work is properly delegated, it is executed more efficiently. Also, it gives my staff members more challenges and opportunities to develop new skills. It also cultivates a sense of responsibility among them. As a result, we work better as a team. How do you handle criticism?
I always welcome feedback on my work, whether it is praise or criticism. The worst situation is to get no feedback because I won't know whether I'm doing well or not. Criticism provides a great opportunity to learn and grow. If I'm doing something wrong, I'd like to know so that I can correct and improve myself. How do you react to criticism by superiors if you believe it is unwarranted?
Even if the criticism is unwarranted, it was caused by something. If it was something I did, I'd like to find out what it was. I'd like to sit down with my superior and discuss what prompted the criticism, and if it was some kind of misunderstanding, I'd like to clarify it. I believe in open, candid communication.
How do you react to criticism?
Will you be able to cope with a change in work environment after working 10 years in your last job?
Certainly. Although I have been with the same company for 10 years, I have transferred and worked in several different departments. I always quickly adapted to the new environment and was accepted on the new team. Now I'm ready for new goals and challenges. I'd like to transfer all the skills and experience I acquired during the last 10 years to this company. That's exactly why I'm making a career change. I felt it was time for me to face some new challenges, make some new contributions, and meet some new friends. I welcome the opportunity to adapt to a new environment and learn new things. Do you mind working for someone younger than yourself?
Not at all. I spent the last 2 years in business school studying alongside people in their 20s and 30s. I did a number of group projects with some of these young people, and sometimes I worked under their leadership. I found it quite exciting to be exposed to ideas and experiences of different generations, because until then I didn't have much chance to interact with younger generations. I was quite impressed by their unique ideas, flexibility, and digital skills. I got along well with my group members and continue to socialize with some of them since graduation. I don't think I would have any problem working for someone younger. How would you feel about working for a female executive?
I've worked with a number of competent women. I enjoy working for anyone who is talented and has good management skills, whether a man or a woman. Talent has no gender. In high school, I served as the vice president of the student union. The president was a female student. She was very smart and demonstrated great leadership. We worked very well as a team. I have no problem working for a woman. What are some of the things that bother you?
I truly believe that a tidy, organized environment is essential to good performance and efficiency. I cannot stand a messy desk and office. We have a refrigerator in our kitchen where employees put their lunch and drinks. Sometimes food disappears. The other day, a coworker left her half-finished lunch in the refrigerator. When she returned to the kitchen 10 minutes later, it was gone. The empty container was thrown away in the trash bin. I had some of my food stolen before. It has happened at other companies I worked for. I find it upsetting that someone in our company is stealing food and that person doesn't care about other people.
What are your pet peeves?
What are two of the biggest problems you've encountered at your job, and how did you overcome them?
One is technical and the other is personnel related. I was a key liaison between my current employer, Transworld Shipping, and CCI, a Danish computer vendor, when Transworld automated its inventory warehousing system at my suggestion because the costs with the outdated system we were using were high and getting worse. I helped CCI understand our business and develop custom hardware and software to meet our needs. On the personnel side, Transworld had an employee in my department who was valued for his contributions but was creating a management problem because he was chronically late. Through a series of conversations with him on this topic, I was able to determine that the root of the punctuality problem was a mental health issue. I pressed him to get help through the company's employee assistance program, which he did, and we were able to salvage an otherwise high-performing worker.
What major problem have you had to deal with recently? What major challenges have you encountered, and how did you deal with them? What is the most difficult situation you have faced? Think of a major crisis you've faced at work and explain how you handled it. What kind of problems do you handle best? What problems have you solved in your previous positions? What problems did you encounter in your last job? Tell me how you handled an ethical dilemma.
This is probably the easiest sort of question to answer because there is no job that is worth violating my personal ethical code. You can talk yourself into thinking there are gray areas, but I believe that you can always find the truth by looking inside yourself. For instance, when I was sales manager for ABC Motors, we were introducing our first SUV, an extremely important step in the company's ability to remain a going concern. We discovered a potentially dangerous problem with the latch on the rear door. There was a proposal to call in the cars under the excuse of a free maintenance checkup. But I strenuously opposed this strategy, in part because I knew we would look even worse if we tried to hide the problem and were found out, but also because we couldn't be sure that the vehicles would be brought in promptly. Ultimately, we made full disclosure, fixed the problem openly, and still met our sales projections.
How did you handle a request to do something contrary to your moral code or business ethics? Describe an ethical dilemma you resolved in working with groups.
What was the most difficult decision you ever had to make?
When I had to let good employees go. When the company I worked for was acquired by ABC Insurance, our department was eliminated. I was able to transfer some of my subordinates to other departments, but had to let most of them go. Some of them were very good workers, having contributed to the success of the company for many years. Losing competent employees is always painful.
I faced a difficult decision when I had to relocate back to Taiwan from Canada 4 years ago. My children were in high school, and after 5 years there, they had adjusted to the local school. I debated whether I should leave the company and find a job locally or leave my wife and daughters there while coming back here alone. My oldest daughter decided to go to college in Canada, and the younger one decided to come back here with my wife and me. After 4 years, they both seemed to be happy with their own decisions.
What was the toughest decision you had to make in the last year? Why was it difficult? How did you handle a time when you had to work with someone you disliked? Have you ever had a conflict with a boss? Have you ever had a conflict with a professor? How did you resolve it? Describe a conflict or disagreement at work in which you were involved. How was it resolved? Give me an example of when you disagreed with a team and how you dealt with it. Would you describe a situation in which your work was criticized? Can you tell me about a time when your work or one of your ideas was severely criticized?
If you encountered this situation, how would you handle it? Situation 1. You shipped a product to your new customer according to their specifications. The customer comes back and says the product did not meet the specifications, but they will accept the product if the price is discounted 20%. What would you do?
I would first compare the certificate of quality for the shipped product and the specifications of the customer's order to make sure that we ship the product with the right specifications. After confirming that fact, I would present the customer with both documents and ask specifically where they think there is a discrepancy. I would ask if there is any way we could help them while conveying appreciation for their business and willingness to continue serving them.
Situation 2. The new customer you and your superior have been working on for months finally is ready to place an order. They want the product delivered immediately on credit. However, their credit needs to be approved first. But your superior is out of town and you do not have the authorization to ship the product without prepayment. What would you do?
I would explain our company policy to the customer and ask them to submit a credit application and to wait for the delivery until their application is approved. I would assure them I would personally expedite the paperwork and their order would go out as soon as their credit is approved. If they cannot wait, I would ask them to prepay for the shipment. I would thank the customer for the business and convey our eagerness to fulfill their order as quickly as possible. How would you sell me this pen, cup, chair, etc.?
What kind of pens do you use now? For what purpose? What are your criteria when selecting a pen? Is the price most important, or comfort or design? These pens don't use an ink cartridge. They use a special composite tip that gives the appearance of ink but lasts for years and doesn't smudge at all. The patent is pending for this cutting-edge technology. Since it lasts longer than conventional pens, it is more cost-efficient. Once you get one, you don't need to replenish it for years. It will save your purchasing department a lot of time and cost. Why don't you try this one? If you like it as much as I do, we can start discussing the order quantity, the price, delivery time, and even a volume discount. What supervisory or leadership roles have you had?
In my last job, I led a team of 5 on a research project. Based on the research needs of another unit, I designed the research and outlined the research method and schedule. I assigned tasks for each member and monitored the progress. At the same time, I interacted with the project manager and reported team activities and progress. We completed the project on time and within budget. I received a compliment from the project manager. At my current employer, I train and mentor new employees on computers, filing, and office procedures. It is a small company and we don't have formal training, so I have to provide them with orientation on almost everything. Since our boss is not in the office most of the time, other employees come to me whenever they have questions or need advice. I enjoy helping them.
I was a class leader every year for 3 years in high school. I ran for the position and was elected by my classmates every time. Based on the aspirations and pledges we announced at the time of election, I developed and presented the goals for the class together with my co-leader. We planned and organized class activities and led class discussions for events and issues. In school events, we represented the class and also acted as a liaison between the teacher and the class. I always enjoyed being a leader. How many people did you supervise on your last job? Can you give an example of a time when you acted as a leader of a group to achieve a particular goal?
Have you ever been in a position to hire employees?
Yes, I was a decision maker in hiring for my department with my last job. I have even helped other managers screen applicants because they think I'm a good judge of people. I have never been directly responsible for hiring, but in many cases I was asked to attend interviews of prospective employees and provide my feedback. My boss valued my insight and knowledge of the job requirements in making his selection.
What do you look for when you hire people? Have you ever hired employees? And if so, have they lived up to your expectations?
What do your subordinates think of you?
They think I am an expert in cloud computing and also that I treat them fairly. Some past subordinates said I'm intense and demanding, but that is because I have high expectations for them. They probably have to work harder for me than other bosses, but they know that brings the best out of them. All the people who worked for me said they learned more from me than anyone else.
I do not micromanage my subordinates. I try to encourage initiative and creativity. Those who are self-motivated and ambitious love me and perform very well under my supervision. What do your subordinates think are your strengths? What do your subordinates think are your weaknesses?
What sort of manager are you?
I am good at identifying each individual's strengths and weaknesses and what motivates them. I can communicate company goals and motivate people to produce. I've also tapped potential in my subordinates that even they didn't realize existed. I utilize positive reinforcement and give them recognition for a job well done.
My management style is based more on consensus than dictatorship. I'm not afraid to ask my staff members, "What do you think?" I believe good ideas are good ideas whether they come from managers or subordinates. Some managers are too concerned about getting recognition for their own work. We need to succeed as a team and in turn as a company. My job as a manager is to create an environment where my staff members can perform their best to their potential. What is your management style? What's your managerial style like? Are you a good manager? Give an example. Why do you feel you have top managerial potential? How well do you manage people? Do you know how to motivate other people?
What makes a good manager?
A good manager should have a clear understanding of company goals and be dedicated to them while being able to communicate them to the subordinates. And he or she should be able to motivate and guide the subordinates to achieve those goals. Excellent communication skills, as well as good planning, organizing, and interpersonal skills are musts for a manager.
A good manager should possess both technical or business skills and human or people skills. The manager should be able to demonstrate superior knowledge and expertise in his or her functional area, and also understand human nature and development in order to motivate and guide staff members. I think it is important that the manager is someone the subordinates can look up to as a professional and a person. What makes the best manager? What makes a good department head? What qualities do you feel a successful manager should have? What qualities should a successful manager possess?
What type of performance problems have you encountered in people who report to you, and how did you motivate them to improve?
I once had an employee who was very careless. He made tons of typos on every page of the reports he wrote, and also sometimes sent emails to the wrong people. One time he sent our client an email he was supposed to send a vendor. So I told him to come up with a system that would prevent such careless mistakes. He placed a note right on his computer to remind him to double-check the email addresses he was sending messages to. He also began to review his reports 3 times instead of just once before he turned them in to me. The number of mistakes was greatly reduced and within an acceptable range, although he still made mistakes. Did you ever fire anyone? If so, what were the reasons, and how did you handle it?
Yes, I did when an employee did not show up for work for 5 days without notifying us. I personally went to his home but could not find him, so I contacted HR according to the company policy. HR notified the employee in writing of the intent to terminate employment, but we never heard from him. We have a company policy that an employee who is absent from work for 3 consecutive working days or more without notice is deemed to have quit. What do you see as the most difficult task in being a manager?
When I have to let people go who have made contributions and have been loyal to the company over the years due to downsizing or another reason that is beyond their or my control. Especially when I know they're family members and that they may face some financial hardship, at least for a short period of time. After 10 years of management, my stomach still sinks when I have to announce layoffs to my subordinates. What is your biggest weakness as a manager?
I'm the kind of manager who lets subordinates think and act on their own. I highly value self-motivation, initiative, and creativity. Those who are self-motivated and creative thrive under my supervision. However, there are people who need more supervision or hand-holding, so to speak. They sometimes feel lost with my laissez-faire management style. I recognize that tendency and learned how to be more flexible. I give more attention and guidance to those employees until they learn to act on their own initiative. Have you ever been responsible for profit and loss statements?
Yes, when I was general manager in charge of specialty chemicals at ABC Trading. I increased division revenues by 35% and profits by 60% in less than 2 years.
In the last 3 years, I had profit and loss responsibility for the U.S. operations of a Taiwanese networking equipment manufacturer. I was responsible for establishing the U.S. subsidiary and a distribution network for our products from scratch. I achieved sales of $15 million in the first year and turned the operations profitable by the end of the 3rd year.
I have never been directly responsible for the bottom line, but I worked for someone who was, and I implemented many cost-cutting measures to improve not only the bottom line of the department, but also of the company. I would welcome direct responsibility over PL and the challenge to improve it.
What interests do you have outside work?
I work out at a gym 3 times a week. After lifting weights for about an hour, I swim for half an hour. I've been doing the workout for the last 15 years. It's also a great way to refresh myself after a day's work. I jog every morning. I have participated in several marathons, including the Honolulu Marathon. I'm not even close to being a top runner, but it feels really good to finish. It gives me a sense of accomplishment. While running, I'm saying to myself, I hate this. Why am I doing this? But as soon as I finish, I say to myself, I should do better next time. I'd better continue to train.
I love to travel. I have been to over 20 countries. Most of the time, I do all the research and bookings on the internet and don't use a travel agency or join a package tour. I like the actual travel, but I also enjoy the planning part. I find it very exciting. My dedication to my career takes up most of my time, but I make it a rule to spend weekends with my family. I'm involved in my children's sports and help them with homework. Do you have any hobbies? What are your hobbies? Do you play any sports? What are your leisure activities? How do you spend your spare time? What is the most interesting trip you have ever taken?
What was the last book you read?
A Man in Full by Tom Wolfe. He's my favorite writer. Did you read Wolfe's The Right Stuff about the astronaut program? Now that is a demonstration of human know-how and determination. It shows what can be done if people put their minds and hearts into something. I'd like to be part of something like that.
What was the last movie you saw? What was the last book you read or the last movie you saw, and how did it affect you? What are the last 3 books you've read?
Why didn't you continue your formal education?
When I was in college, I worked part-time to pay my college expenses, and I was fortunate to be employed by a great company. My employer wanted more of my time and offered me a great opportunity to work full-time. I debated, but I chose to devote myself full-time to my career. I've never regretted that decision because I have continued to learn and grow with my work.
I had to discontinue my studies because of my family situation. My father got ill, and I had to earn a living for myself and my family. My past employers found my job skills and life experience valuable to them. Plus, I continued to learn by taking computer classes in the evening. Why is there a long gap in your employment history?
Between my first and second jobs, I decided to take a year off to travel around the world. I backpacked from Asia to Africa and to Latin America, visiting more than 60 countries. It was a great experience, probably a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I met so many interesting people from all over the world and made some great friends. I'm still in touch with some of them after 3 years. Intercultural communication skills are among those I acquired during the trip and helped tremendously in my current job. I am sure that it will help me with this new position as well.
I was raising a child. I always planned to stay with my child at home until she entered preschool. However, I was also determined to return to the programming field. So during the 5 years, I did some contract programming work at home. I also volunteered to be an administrator for an online coding forum so that I could keep current with the field. Can you explain the long gaps in your employment history? What have you been doing since your last job? Why have you been out of work for so long?